Hey everybody, what's going on? Bahroo here, back again with some more Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and today we're going to be continuing our in-game skill trees with Wilhelm. Now we've already gone over Claptrap and Athena, and for them I have more of a full offense type build with them. But something that's been missing is a character that just really doesn't care what the enemy throws at him, and today is that day for Wilhelm. Wilhelm is an extreme tank if you build him in the right way, and when I played him at PAX, he had a very hard time dying. In fact, one of his capstones actually had a hard time going off because it never went under the health threshold. But anyway, with that all said and done, let's go ahead and take a look at what Wilhelm has to offer. So before we get started, let's go ahead and mention that Saint is the main key to this entire build, and that he will regenerate 2.5% of your maximum health every second for the full 35 seconds that it is active. So with the first skill tree, let's go into Dreadnought. First up is auxiliary tanks. This will increase Wolf and Saint's duration as well as increasing your cooldown rate. Now Wolf and Saint will get increased by 10 seconds, making them last 45 seconds, and the cooldown rate will go down or go up by 15%. We go ahead and throw 2 points into Fortify as well because we need to throw points somewhere. Anyway, next up is Energize. This one will give Saint a new ability that allows it to regenerate your shields. This is similar to how Buck Up works with Gage back in Borderlands 2. But the important part of this is that Saint's regeneration goes up by 3% of your maximum health, adding to the 2.5% that is already there. Meaning that when Saint is active for 45 seconds, you will gain 5.5% of your maximum health every second. That is a lot of health. That is a lot of health regeneration just happening when Saint is active. Also, the shield regen is kind of nice, but like I said, it's like Buck Up. It can come at the worst possible time. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at Termination Protocols. Now, the reason we pick up this skill, while we don't go into fight for our life that much, it is the worst thing in the world when you go down and an enemy decides to back up. That is still a thing, but they do come into melee range a bit more often. Now in the pre-sequel, psychos will actually jump on you and attempt to throw your aim off and things like that. But this allows you to get on your feet and walk around, as well as being able to get to those enemies who decide to go around a corner. Also, if you're not able to get a kill, you end the whole thing with a bang and a nuclear explosion that will pretty much one-shot anything that gets inside the blast, so that's kind of nice. So with that out of the way, let's keep moving down the tree. Here was 0 Hour. When Saint does die, expires, explodes, however, Saint is gone, it will deploy a healing zone underneath you, and you and your friends will regenerate while standing in that zone. The zone lasts for 12 seconds and regenerates 8% of your maximum health every second. So for those 12 seconds that you are without Saint, you're going to keep getting that health regen, which is very important because, like I said, this entire build centers around keeping Saint up as much as possible, and for the downtime, you have more health. This is another reason that I don't go into heat sinks, which is shield recharge rate and delay, but has a double effect when they're on cooldown, because I like to reduce the cooldown as much as possible. If there's a comm that will allow you to reduce the cooldown even further, that will be what I am using, as well as probably any sort of cooldown Oz kit. So now we've got Hazmat Containment System. As you know, elements are a thing in Borderlands, and the enemies will be using them just as much as you. So we're going to go ahead and increase our elemental resistance to everything. If you have an Incendiary Shock or Corrosive status effect on you, you and your friends gain resistance to that element. Additionally, you will occasionally spread the status effect to nearby enemies while it is active. So if an enemy decides to freeze you, you get to freeze them back. Now the status effect chance is pretty much the same as what their gun is, so if they hit you with a sniper, it's actually going to have a very good chance of bouncing back at the enemy. If they hit you with an SMG, not so much. One thing that is really nice about this is that this stacks with the elemental resistance of a resistance shield, that the max health and elemental resistance. So putting these two together will pretty much make elements a non-issue. Next up, we're going into Kinetic Armor. Increase your maximum health. Additionally, close range attackers have a chance to be struck by an explosive feedback. The closer the enemy is, the more likely they are to be struck. So an interesting thing, while the explosive feedback does not do too much in the way of damage, this thing is a staggering machine. If you get in the melee range of your enemy, they're going to have a hard time keeping a shot on you because the explosive feedback will keep knocking them around. Psychos that tend to melee you have a hard time even getting a swing off when they're just getting constantly staggered. In addition, the maximum health is nice because, again, your healing is all percentage based. We don't go into hard to kill because I found this really hard to kind of stack up, and you lose all of your stacks if you don't take damage for more than 10 seconds, and that is a very real possibility when going to enemy. So anyway, next up we have Overcharge, Saint's ability. Immediately after being summoned, Saints will release an energy wave that will overcharge you and your nearby friends for a short duration. Overcharge players gain increased movement speed, fire rate, reload speed, and ammo regeneration. So if you're running low on any type of ammo, just switch to it, hit the Saint ability, and you will get pretty much a full recharge. The plus 10 ammo regeneration was actually really nice. Salvador passively, with the class mod, kind of had about 5, if I remember correctly. So having 10 ammo regeneration will pretty much make it so you don't run out of ammo during this overcharge period. So it will not regenerate rockets. I know that's sad, but it's kind of expected. Anyway, this pretty much a really good skill. Refill your ammo as needed. The movement speed is kind of nice. The fire rate is pretty ridiculous. And the reload speed is also really nice. 75% on the fire rate and the reload speed. So that should cover up the Dreadnought skill tree. We didn't go into rapid reinforcement because honestly I found it kind of lackluster. I know I said I focused mostly on action skill cooldown rate, but I just I wasn't really feeling this skill in general, considering what I was giving up to get this. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go into Cyber Commando. Again, keeping with the tank build, we're going to increase our shield capacity and maximum health for myself and Wolf. The shield capacity up by 15% as well as the health, and the same for Wolf, but these are 25% instead of 15%. A little bit of extra survivability, which is really nice. Again, during the gameplay, I really didn't have any trouble keeping my surveyors alive. Enemies have a hard time landing a shot on them. Next up, we have Targeting Scope. The reason we're going into this is because out of the other two skills, this one seems superior. Laser Focus will increase your laser damage, so I guess if you end up having a lot of lasers, then go for it. One thing that's special about this build is that it does not focus on any specific weapon type or element, so use what you got for this. Anyway, we're going into Targeting Scope. Killing an enemy gives you increased accuracy and critical damage for a few seconds. The accuracy increase is honestly not even noticeable because most guns are perfectly accurate anyway, but the critical damage is very noticeable. An additional 50% when you crit on enemies, and this is multiplicative with the ×2 passive, which is really nice. So, and I didn't go into first to fight because, well, I'm always doing damage to enemies, so I really only get that damage buff for the first 5 seconds of the fight. So next up we have the Power Fist. This is actually a very strong melee override to perform an explosive punch with an extended range. The range is, I guess you could say, a couple feet ahead of you. It is pretty nice to have. It's not a lunge per se, but it does have a pretty good range on it. And this ability has a small cooldown on it, 12 seconds. The physical damage on it is really nice. You'll be one-shotting most of the common enemies, and it will deal a pretty massive chunk of damage to badass enemies. So next up we've got Shock Absorbers. This will allow you to shoot while sprinting at no cost to your accuracy. In addition, you gain damage while you do this. So now, in addition to running up to the enemy, you can keep firing, keeping that fire on them. And it actually was kind of funny to be sprinting around an enemy just so I got the extra gun damage, and they didn't know what to do because they keep getting staggered by the Kinetic Armor and sprinting around them, so they can't really get a shot on me. So this is just a really nice skill to have in general if you can get used to the whole sprinting and firing at the same time. I know it can be a little awkward, but after a little bit of gameplay, you will get used to it. Next up, we have Divert Power. When your shields are depleted and your health is low, taking damage causes you to gain massive shield regeneration and damage resistance for a few seconds. This ability has a cooldown, so the health threshold of this is 30%. So as soon as you go into 30%, you will gain 100% of your shield and also gain 83.3% damage resistance. This is a very oddly specific number, and no, combining Divert Power with Hard to Kill does not make you immortal. They don't stack like that, unfortunately. That would be a little broken. But anyway, Divert Power will give you a massive damage reduction. I was able to just shrug off rockets at that point when it was active, and the shield regeneration is nice. Now the cooldown on this is 25 seconds, so you will be without this for quite some time. But it does synergize really well with Emergency Response. Emergency Response is activated whenever your shield becomes completely depleted. This will increase your fire rate, your reload speed, and pulse fire rate. For a short duration, your shield must fully recharge between activations, so you will get a full recharge from Divert Power, which will give you Emergency Response. Now, the fire rate is 25% for the reload speed and the fire rate. However, Wolf's goes up to 40% fire rate, which is a pretty significant amount for him. Now we're going to go ahead and pass over the gun show because honestly, while the buffs are nice, it's kind of a small buff to have in general. And Meteor Slam, this one I'm not sure whether it is going to be good or bad. The reason I don't pick this up is because the Oz kits that we had available to us didn't have really extraordinary slam damage. Now maybe there's a legendary Oz kit out there that makes slam damage ridiculous and this is going to be awesome. We don't know. But the damage for slam in general is not that great, so no point in increasing its radius at all. Doesn't really do much for you. The radius increase that it does get though is fairly significant. I just didn't find it that useful, considering that the Oz kits that we had in our gameplay weren't the strongest. Anyway, next up we have Vengeance Cannon. Whenever your shield becomes depleted, you activate your shoulder-mounted Vengeance Cannon. The Vengeance Cannon fires incendiary laser blasts in tandem with your equipped gun and lasts for a short period. Your shield must fully recharge between activations. This is another reason that we want to have Divert Power, because this will give us a fully recharging shield. Now, the Vengeance Cannon does deal a significant amount of damage. It's really hard to kind of explain without showing you gameplay of it, but it will help you drop badasses in just a short amount of time. And overall, it's just kind of a nice buff to have, but you're not going to have it at all times. Anyway, hope you all have been enjoying this endgame skill tree walkthrough, and this is pretty much what I'm going to be using for Wilhelm. I wasn't really too impressed by the hunter-killer tree, but maybe when I get a couple more class mods to mess around with, we'll take a second look at this. But for right now, the hunter-killer tree is just going to be sitting on the back burner here, and we're going to be going with our Cyber Commando and Dreadnought build. Anyway, guys, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. I will be bringing you guys future pre-sequel content on the daily leading up to the release. And you can expect a lot of content once that does finally hit. I hope you all will join me here on YouTube and on Twitch.tv. And I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to leave a comment on... Actually, that's all of them. Damn it. I've ruined my outro. I'm going to put the Machinima logo up now. I am awful. Yeah.